Little review on the PSE Zombie React pistol crossbow. I've always wanted a pistol crossbow and I've been researching them. I think there's four, major ones out there. While all of them are kind of toyish, they are not toys. These things can be extremely lethal, especially if you make some modifications to them like I have. Redbone, I guess the Redbone pistol crossbow, which is almost identical to the PSE pistol crossbow, is pretty much only available in the UK. I guess you can get them here in the US with a little bit of effort, but I preferred to get it local, so I got the PSE version of this. The PSE Zombie React is a 50-pound draw. The Redbone, I guess, is an 80. I can't compare the two as far as shootability with them because I don't have the Redbone to compare it to. But my initial thoughts on this crossbow is it's actually pretty neat. The red dot green dot sight that it comes with, while cheap, is still a very decent red dot green dot considering what you're paying for this bow. You can adjust the brightness settings on it, excuse me, and you can also change the reticle to either a single dot, a circle with a dot, crosshairs. I think there's three or four different ones you can change it to. Personally, I prefer it in green with just a single dot. That's my preference, and that's how I use it. The crossbow is easy to assemble. I watched a couple videos on YouTube prior to buying it, so that helped a lot and made it a lot more streamlined to put together. It comes with 5 of these cheap molded plastic bolts. These things are garbage, to say the least. I tried shooting these. I couldn't get any form of accuracy with them in any way, shape, or form. And I'm a pistol shooter by nature. Been shooting for, more than 35 years, pistols, and I'm very good with them. Pistol crossbows, not that much different, but with these bolts that come with it, I couldn't get any type of accuracy to save my life. So being the handy type person I am, and I like to make things, I went to Bass Pro Shops and I bought a 6-pack of bolts, or not bolts, I'm sorry, regular arrows. Let's see, these are, what are they? XS or X5, I'm sorry, Envy 500. They were, I think it was $35 for a 6-pack. I had them cut these down, the full-length arrows, down to 8 1/4 inches, and then install the insert in the tip so you can screw in your own tips. So with a 6-pack, I was able to get 3 8 1/4 inch lengths out of each arrow. So I ended up with basically 18 pieces, 8 1/4 inches long, that look like this with the inserts for the tips. I then bought a pack of 2.5 inch fletchings. I bought them in lime green to match the bow. There's 36 in a pack. I had 18 bolts, 2 fletchings per bolt. It was perfect. I needed 36. I got 36. I also bought a pack of fletching fuse glue and decided I was going to make my own bolts. Now, because I didn't have a fletching machine, I was trying to figure out the best way for me to install these fletchings while keeping them straight. I knew that was going to be a challenge because when you take the fletchings out, they're very flexible. And to get them on a bolt, to where they're not curved in any way or straight without a fletching jig is a challenge. So I came up with my own idea, and I just grabbed a chip clip, just a regular old chip clip, and I insert the, excuse me a second while I get this situated. I can insert the fletching into the chip clip, you know, and clip it on like so. Let me get it on here. Insert it in the chip clip, and it holds it straight. So then I was able to apply glue, the fletching fuse, and attach it on top of the bolt by eyeball, of course, right where I needed it to go, and just held it in place. Of course, I made a little jig to hold them, you know, type of thing, and a clamp. So they all went on in the same distance. And what I ended up with after gluing them on are these. Just field tips. These are 85 grain tips that I put on there. 2 fletchings. You can see they're straight. You know, they're on there straight because of the chip clip, and was able to get them on there. Now, when you first cut these arrows, these are a carbon fiber arrows that you're cutting. The end of them, or well, the whole thing, is hollow. You can see right through them. So I thought, well, when the string from the crossbow is pushed up against this, you're liable to damage it. It's carbon fiber. It's pretty tough. I thought, okay, what can I put in there to plug that, you know, and make it more solid? So I took the original bolts. These original bolts, being plastic, they were very easy to cut with a razor knife. So I cut them in 3/4 inch pieces, and they fit exactly, I mean really tight, inside of the arrows that I cut down to make my own bolts. So I cut a 3/4 inch piece off, you know, started there, just cut 3/4 of an inch off. I put a dab of well, not a dab, but the fletching glue around one end, and then inserted that end into the new bolts, and used a hammer and just tapped it down until it was flush, and you end up with a plug inside of there to help give that back where the string of the crossbow is going to hit that and push it forward. You get a much stronger fuse there. The only problem I've come across with making these bolts is that they are a bigger diameter than the bolts that come with it. And while inserting them in, you run into a problem up in here where they're a little too thick. And I couldn't get it to seat back in there as far as I needed it to. So what I had to do at that point was shave the back of the bolt and just flatten out the top end of it. So when I load these in, I use the silver Sharpie just to mark it. That silver portion has to stick upright every time I put it in. But because I've now flattened that out just enough, I'm able to slide it all the way back in till it hits the string when it's cocked and the string's back there. I'm able to slide it all the way in now. A slight little modification, but they work well. I bought some water slide paper, and using my printer, I made some water slide decals that say Zombie Slayer on them in green. That was more just because I wanted to mess with the water slide paper. Doesn't really serve any purpose, but they look kind of cool. So I made those. So I've got a bunch of bolts here that are completed. 5 of them have the Zombie Slayer decals on the side. 3 of them do not yet. And then I've still got all these over here I haven't even made. But getting back to accuracy, I sighted this thing in at 20 feet and using the bolts that I made. and I was able to plug the center dot of I was using a target that's rated for 450 feet per second arrows. It's a heavy duty target. And these plastic bolts were only sinking into that target, maybe an inch to an inch and a quarter. They're just barely going in. And I was really disappointed. When I made my new bolts, I was able to zero that sight down to where I can put 5 bolts at 20 feet in the size of a quarter every time. I was hitting bolts. I mean, it was amazing how accurate it was. And I'm sinking them in 4.5 to 5 inches. They're heavier, of course, than the plastic ones. And they when they hit hard. So it's able to drive them in there. So I decided, okay, I've sighted it in at 20 feet. I'll take it out to 30 feet and let's see how I do. 5 bolts, the new bolts I made at 30 feet, I was able to sink all 5 bolts in the size of a 50-cent piece. The plastic ones that it came with, I tried shooting these 4 at 30 feet, and I didn't get 4 of them in the diameter of a basketball. That's how inaccurate they are. They're garbage, and that's why a lot of people consider these pistol crossbows toys, because these things are crap. Just use them for something else. Use them to plug in the butts of your new bolts, when you're making them. I just use a razor knife and literally cut off 3/4 of an inch, put some super glue on it and cram it in the back of the bolt, and it gives that bolt a nice solid end on the back. But the bolts I made, they are longer. Let's see, we'll compare length here. All right, there's one of the plastic ones up beside one of the ones I made. So they're probably 2 inches longer or close to that. When they're inserted in the bow, the plastic ones it comes with are sitting about right there. So right where your arms come up to cock your bow is about as far as they go. The ones I made, when you put them in, you can see they're sticking further out the front over top of that area where your cocker is. So it's still not far enough to put a broadhead on these. If you can get a broadhead that only has 2 blades, like that stick out just like your fletchings do, just 2 fletchings out the side, it wouldn't matter. You can put those on there and they'll stick out the sides and you can use them that way. But the thing, it can be lethal. I would have no hesitation whatsoever shooting these, and very confident that they're going to penetrate, somebody's body. Depending on if it hits bone or whatever, but it's still going to cause damage. These little plastic ones, I wouldn't trust those, in a self-defense situation or anything like that, or for hunting or anything. But with these, absolutely, you can kill small game with these. Rabbits, type stuff. You can squirrel. You could absolutely take out small game with these. They're very accurate. The sight itself, it's a cheap sight, but it's dead on. I mean, once you sight it in, these bolts that I made, they fly great. Now, I know there's some companies out there that make bolts that you can buy for these pistol crossbows that are obviously better than the plastic ones. I could have bought them. I wanted the challenge of making my own, so I decided to go that route and make my own. It maybe cost me a little bit more money. The arrows themselves, when I bought the 6-pack of arrows, was like $35. Then the fletchings, the field tips, because I bought 2 packs of field tips, and I believe there's 12 in a pack. I didn't need 24 of them, but they come 12 in a pack, so I bought those. Those are like $9 a pack, and the fletchings were like $14 or something like that. Then the glue and the inserts, so you could thread in your tips. By the time I bought all that with tax and all, I spent 94 bucks to make 18 bolts. That's a little pricey in my opinion, but again, I wanted to make my own, so I didn't mind spending the money, and I'm happy I did. The 8¼ inch length came out perfect. These things fly true. They're a lot more rigid. These plastic ones, I mean, it doesn't take much effort to distort these at all. I mean, it's very little, you know, they're so flimsy and so cheap. And they're not true. They're not straight. You build these bolts and these things fly like a dream. So that's my little review of the bow itself. I did something, I don't know if you're supposed to or not, when installing the string. I watched all the videos I watched, the people just fed the string through and connected it to the ends. It was a simple process. When I did mine, I twisted the string. I didn't twist it a lot, but all these fibers that are here across this area are now, you know, rotated versus just being straight across. I don't know if that's a benefit or not, but that's what I did to when I put my string on. I did twist it some. I don't know what the feet per second is. I don't have a chronometer to do it, but I do know at 30 feet, 10 yards, it's still very accurate. So that's my review. I hope you enjoy it. I hope it helped you out. Have a good one.